I've been working on a Bun API for a side project lately, and it's been a wonderful experience. So today, I want to show you what I learned and how to work with this powerful modern runtime. Here is what we will cover today. First, we will discuss creating a new project with Bun and how to organize your files. Then we will cover an API framework that you can use with it called Elysia.js. It is a blazingly fast Express.js alternative. And lastly, we'll cover how to test and deploy your API. We'll keep everything light, simple, and to the point in order to give you a good starting point for your project. And as always, the final code will be available on GitHub in the description. First, let's get started with creating a Bun project. We'll use everything Bun has to offer: the package manager, the testing suite, and the runtime. After you have installed Bun, open a terminal and create a new folder. cd into that folder and call Bun init. This will ask you a couple of questions about naming your project and the entry point. You can feel free to accept the default and proceed with the choices. Now let us explore a little bit our newly created project. Bun init created an index.tsx file, a package.json, a readme, and a TypeScript configuration file. This is all fairly minimal, so let's organize things a little bit more. I went ahead and created 4 new folders. This structure loosely adopts things from the MVC or even hexagonal architecture approach, but there's not too much constraints, it's a little bit freeform. We have a controller folder that will hold our routes, a service folder which will be responsible for business logic, and lastly, we have an adapter folder to create a database connection and a config folder where you can put any kind of configuration you might need. Now let's move on to Elysia. To put it simply, Elysia is a backend framework that allows building HTTP servers. It achieves speeds that are 21 times faster than Express and even competes on speed with Rust and Go frameworks, all while allowing you to write code easily in TypeScript with great ergonomics. To install Elysia, run bun add Elysia and replace your script section with these new scripts that will give you a bit more options than before. Lastly, in our index.ts file, let's add a minimal Elysia server and have it listen on port 8080. This is already a good hello world, but let's go and see a bit how we would organize our files in order to create something like a REST API. In Elysia, creating an endpoint is really simple. For example, if you want to create a get endpoint, I will simply call the .get method on my app object. This method takes as an argument the path and then the method which will return the value from your endpoint. This will feel familiar to Express if you have worked with it, but a nice difference is that Elysia will accept the return value directly. You don't have to pass something like response.send, response.json, it's all done in the return value. The framework handles that for you under the hood, so you can focus on shipping features. Now let's see a more complete example. I will first create a function inside cat.service.ts. This will mimic getting data from my database and return an array of cats with their age and name. The next step will be to create a controller which will hold a subset of my routes. You could decide to do this 100% within your index.ts file, but it is useful to organize your routes as your application grows. You can create another Elysia app and pass all the routes of this group into it. Here I'm only creating a route that gets me all my cats. I can consume this controller simply by importing it in my index.ts file and passing it to the .use method of my main Elysia application. So here we have a working API that gives me a list of cats. You could call it a day, but let's get to deploying and actually test our code to ensure that everything works. With Bun, this is really easy. First, I just refactored a bit my index file just to export my Elysia app to make things easier to test. Then let's go ahead and create an index.test.ts file. This will look similar to a just test file or even a vtest file. We have our describe, our expect function, but notice we're importing from bun test. Testing an endpoint in Elysia is quite easy. You can simulate a call to your API using the handle method. This will return a standard web response on which you can call the .text or .json method. As an example, here we are testing that our root endpoint returns a hi keyword and our cat endpoint returns an array. To run those tests, you can call bun test and you will get a recap of your failing and passing tests. Keep in mind that Bun as a testing framework is not fully mature like Jest or vtest, but it is a good simple tool if you want to run your projects quickly and have just one tool to do everything. It is really useful. Now we have an API organized around controllers, it returns data, we have tested our API. Let's wrap up by hosting our API. Your options for hosting Bun server are numerous and they fall under two categories. You can either host it as a long-running server, or you can decide to split it along serverless functions. Today we're going to explore the long-running server option. For this, my default provider is normally Fly.io, and luckily they support Bun without much effort. If you're following along with the video, now is a good time to pause and register to Fly.io. You should go ahead and download their CLI. I will leave a link in the description. So from your console, go ahead and call fly launch. This will go and create a Docker image that you can use to build your Bun application on Fly. I will just go ahead and change the port here to be 8080, as this is the port I am using for development. Then I will proceed to deploy it by calling the fly deploy command. This will proceed to build your Docker image on a remote server and deploy it to the Fly platform. Speeding up a minute later here and the deployment is done, but I realized that port 3000 was actually a requirement for Fly when deploying the Bun application. So I went and I did a few fixes. I just reverted the port to 3000, and in index.ts, I also ensured that we are listening on port 3000. I went ahead and also redeployed with fly deploy. Testing this new deployment gave me the high message as we are expecting. So there you have it. I'm trying to shift a little bit the channel to something where we see more complete tutorials and you get a good starting position for any project. Let me know if this is the type of videos you want by liking and commenting on the video. And also please share it with your friends and subscribe to support the channel, it really means a lot to me. I will be leaving a full written tutorial right under the video. I hope you have a great week and a great start to your 2024.